You actually stamped it. What she meant was that the post office had a cancer.
Oh, they did.
So it looked like it hadn't gone. It looked like it hadn't gone through the post office.
Oh. So somebody just like
$30,000, $40,000 into it. So tried to get 770.
Hey everyone, thank you so very much for coming. This is just an incredible array of faces, known and only slightly known, but I guess to all of you, our mother very well. Barbara, I want to thank each one of you for sharing this celebration with us. And that's what it is, it's a celebration. And there's so much to be celebratory about. I especially want to thank some people who did some traveling to get here, particularly my cousins, Canaan Moonie, and my niece Rachel. Canaan came from Northern California. And Rachel had a much shorter trip up from the city. And Rachel, I want you to know that your mom and our mom are up there watching this and having a great, great amount of fun and smiling. Also, several of our speakers came from quite a distance. Jeffrey Wexler and Susan Hammond came from New Jersey, and Nella Lush and her husband Stephen came all the way down from Andover, Massachusetts, so thank you so much for that. Very meaningful to both of us. We're going to have a slight change in the order of the speakers. Susan Hammond is the Executive Director of the National Association of Women Artists, and has more information in terms of the impact that my mother had on women in the arts and on that organization in specific. And then later on, Jeffrey Wexler will talk specifically about the permanent collection that my mother was so proud to put together. So, if I could ask Susan to come up. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. And thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Susan Hammond. I'm the Executive Director. For some reason, I'm the Executive Director of the National Association. This way, nobody will fall asleep. Hello, hello. Okay, great. Again, my name is Susan Hammond. I'm the Executive Director of the National Association of Women Artists, and I'm honored to be here to honor and celebrate the life of Liana Moonie. I became a member of NAWA in 2003, but because I was working full-time for the Department of Defense, I was not an active member of NAWA until 2005. But in 2007, I became a board member and became familiar with Liana Moonie, the family woman, wife and mother, Liana the artist and her beautiful creative expressions, and Liana the leader and businesswoman who was involved with the National Association of Women Artists. Some people say NAWA, some people say NAWA, so it's all the same. Liana spoke with such love and respect for her husband Clyde and her children Greg and Barbara. Her voice would actually change tones when she spoke of each of them. She was always humble when talking about her artwork, but her talent was evident, and she graciously received numerous awards and tributes. Liana became a member of NAWA in 1985 and served as the president of NAWA from 1987 to 1989. At the beginning of her presidency in 1987, Liana Moonie and Nessa Granger were interviewed by Channel 11 at the annual members exhibition that was held at the Federal Plaza. It was broadcast on Best Talk in Town numerous times, and it was wonderful publicity for the organization. In 1988, Under Liana Moonie's presidency, the following exhibitions and events took place. There was a collection exhibition at the Monmouth Museum. There was a traveling painting exhibition across the United States. The Nawa Constitution was updated and filed with the New York State authorities, and a scholarship fund was established. In 1988, Bernice Harwood, who was a member of NAWA and was a future president of the Florida chapter, informed the Nassau County Office of Cultural Affairs about the centennial celebration of the organization. And thanks to Liana Moonie, the Nassau County Museum of Fine Art presented the exhibition entitled 100 Years, a Centennial Celebration. Liana worked doubly hard in securing financial support for this exhibition, and a beautiful historic publication was created. I have a copy of it here that if anybody wants to look at later, please see me and you'll be able to look at it. This historic catalog describes the works in the exhibition and traces the development of the National Association since its beginning in 1889. This exhibition was curated by Robert Pisano. It contained 117 works of renowned past and present members and artists who had exhibitions with the National Association of Women Artists, including Mary Cassatt, Rosa Bonheur, Cecilia Bowe, Judy Chicago, and Marisol. This is the 96-page catalog was published with a historical essay of the association. The major undertaking from initial planning to fulfillment was accomplished in 15 months. Sorry about this, everybody. Part of the celebration for the 100-year centennial celebration, besides the exhibition and the catalog that I will show you, there was a USA Traveling Centennial exhibition. Women Artists of Today Salute Their Centennial was launched in April and traveled to museums in 5 cities in the United States. A foreign traveling centennial exhibition traveled to India during the summer. Also, a regional traveling exhibition was organized in Colorado, and traveled to 6 locations in that state. This was all under the direction of Liana Moonie. A memorable part of the centennial celebration was a gala, 100th anniversary dinner dance at the 7th Regiment Armory on Park Avenue in New York City, held on January 31st, 1889, which coincides exactly with the date of the founding of this association, which was January 31st, 1889. During this centennial celebration that Liana oversaw and was involved with, NAWA received 3 special recognitions: a citation from New York State Governor Mario Cuomo, presented at the opening reception of the historical exhibition, a proclamation by New York City Mayor Edward Koch, and an honor award by the Women's Caucus for Art, presented in a ceremony at the San Francisco Museum of Fine Art, the first such award ever presented by the Women's Caucus for Arts. Also during 1889, there was a painting, sculpture, and print exhibition at the Lever House on Park Avenue in New York City, a painting, sculpture, and printmaking show at Interchurch Center at Riverside Drive in New York City, and artwork was displayed in numerous Fifth Avenue stores. Now I will forever be grateful to Liana Moonie for this exhibition, publication, and the work that she has done. But wait, we're not finished yet. Now, this was 2 years, okay? We also have Liana to thank for founding the Florida chapter in January of 1995. Even though talks were underway in 1991, it takes a couple of years, as Noah Lush from the Massachusetts chapter will tell you, and in 1995 it was established. This chapter has given NAWA women artists a chance to exhibit their work throughout Florida, as well as work on educational activities and the scholarship fund. Liana was a tireless advocate of the Florida chapter and worked very hard for the Scholarship Fund. Liana also has to be thanked for the creation and founding of the Massachusetts chapter, and I know Nella will talk about that further. Also, Liana founded the Nawa Collection at Jane Voorhees Zimmerly Art Museum at Rutgers University and the archive at Rutgers University Library, and Jeffrey Wexler will be talking about that in a little while. That's why it was switched. Liana received the National Association of Women Artists citation for inspired leadership in 1989, the Bronze Medal for Outstanding Service to the Arts in 2007, and the Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Association of Women Artists in 2012. When Liana received the award, she said, and I quote, "Whatever I have accomplished for NAWA over 30 years has been inspired by our pioneer forerunners. I am deeply proud of the heritage and traditions they left with us. The mission and the purpose of our organization have remained constant in extending the field of opportunity for women artists and maintaining a high standard in their creative endeavors. It has always been an honor and a privilege for me to be able to participate." Liana Moonie served on the National Association of Women Artists Board of Directors for many years as an advisor and liaison for the Florida and Massachusetts chapter. At the January 13, 2014 board meeting, Liana discussed with the Board of Directors and officers that she was not up to traveling and attending future board meetings, so that was her last meeting, 2014, I didn't see. She was amazing. So that was her last meeting. The Board of Directors and officers of NAWA still talk about her tenacity, her vitality, her energy, her smile, her fortitude in traveling into the city to attend the board meetings, reporting on the Florida and Massachusetts chapter as part of her liaison position. The meetings, however, have not been the same. We always look forward to her cheerful manner, her beautiful smile, her talking in Italian to the various Italian members, and of course her interest and suggestions to move the organization forward. As cheerful as she was, you know, when she wanted to move something forward, she could do that. The Board of Directors and officers were going to send flowers for this special memorial celebration, but I decided instead to give an award at our annual members exhibition this year in honor of Liana Moonie. Greg Mooney and I have also discussed the possibility of having a memorial celebration in the NAWA Gallery in September of 2017, where the board, officers, friends of Liana, and artists can pay tribute to this remarkable woman. I know Liana would be very happy about this, and I know she's looking down on all of us now and smiling. So I'm leaving you with that, and thank you very much. And we thank you, Liana. We'll never forget you for all you have done for the organization.
That was great. It's Barbara and I really sometimes have no idea how much she contributed to that organization. And NAWA was her first love, but she had a very close second love, and that is this organization here. And our next speaker, Rosemary Fox, is the chair of the board and also the president of Silvermine. And I want to particularly use this time to thank her and the staff for providing this magnificent space for us. And I know that you work closely with her to forward the mission of Silvermine. And Barbara and I want to thank you so much for the last few months, because you have been really a great solace to her during her last days. So thank you, Rosemary.
Well, Barbara and Craig, it's a tremendous privilege to be able to speak and share with you at Canaan. I want to thank you for this tremendous privilege to be able to speak and share the wonderful art and life of such an amazing woman. So thank you for giving me the privilege to share. was thinking, how do I paint a portrait of such an amazing woman, and how do I paint it in words? And I thought, how simple it is, because there is one word that encompasses everything that Liana is, stood for, gave, shared, and accomplished. That word is love. Think about it. At the core of Liana was love, in its most pure, most unconditional form. I will never, ever forget the first time I was introduced to Liana, and I'm sure many of you had the same experience. I went forward to shake her hand. Liana paused, brought up both of her hands, cupped them around my face, as I'm sure she did with many of you, and in her quiet, almost whispering, sonorous voice said, "I love you." And I took a pause. She didn't even know me. It was nothing about me. It was all about Liana, because Liana had this gift, this overwhelming power of love that came from her and out to everyone living and everything living. Liana was a true love spirit. And to me, actually, she was a golden silver. That's how I always saw Liana when she entered a room. We look around us here with Liana's art, and we are embraced by this sense of power of love. She calls her painting series Feelings of Nature. It taps into the sensitivity of her. And a subset of her paintings, many here, are named haiku, where she collaborated with her son, writing poems and penning the poems to go with the artwork. Liana had a keen power of observation. But she didn't only paint with her eyes and her hands, as many of us do. She painted truly with her soul and her heart. Her paintings have a rich simplicity, but they draw you in. There is an intimacy about her paintings. And you get drawn in, and the more you get drawn in, the more you see this very deep perception. Perception of nature, perception of life, perception of love. I'm going to read a few words from Liana as she describes her artwork. She says, "My paintings spring from a love and an appreciation of nature, filtered through a meld of ever-changing life experiences. My art reflects what I see now and what I have experienced throughout my life." Silvermine was truly blessed to have Liana's love shower on us for almost 40 years. Liana became a guild member in 1978, and then in 2013, she was honored with lifetime membership. In Liana's words, she said she fell in love with Silvermine the very first day she stepped on our campus. And every day forward, Liana put her heart and soul in doing something to help Silvermine. Liana showed in numerous exhibits the Art of the Northeast, which was tremendously competitive and the director's choice. And last May, Liana received Silvermine's first ever Legacy Art Award at the gala event that we had, the benefit at Grace Farms. Liana was a vision. Attired in an elegant blue gown, she rose from the family table and walked to the podium to receive her award with such grace, dignity, and humility. This petite lady addressed an audience of over 200 friends of Silvermine with a soft-spoken, but a nonetheless riveting recollection of the moment when she and her husband Clyde made the decision to found an endowment for the future of Silvermine. Liana told the story of many, many, many years ago when she gave up cigarette smoking. And what she did was, from that day forward, every single day, she would take her cigarette money and she would fold it into a origami-like packet. And she would put it in a red purse. And that red purse she would save in her mind, and she would actually save for some future important use. I'm going to quote some things that Liana said at that benefit. I quote, Liana said, "I was falling in love with Silvermine more and more. It was such an unusual place. I said to Clyde, now is the time to think of Silvermine. It will be for your children, grandchildren, and for artists and for the community." And then Liana went on, and she said, "Silvermine and I are both 94. And Silvermine is my sister." See how personal she was? And she said, "Silvermine is my sister, and that is why I want to give this big gift to her." And that gift was that red purse. And that red purse was the start of Silvermine's endowment. In her quiet force nature, she then continued to speak to us, this friends of over 200, to join her. And because of her force of nature, we have been doing just that. And that endowment and legacy fund is increasing. That's because of Liana. She also inspired a new exhibit that we are having every year, which is called the Legacy Exhibit. And the purpose of the Legacy Exhibit is to really showcase the wonderful artistic heritage of our longtime guild members. The first show will be this year in February, and Liana is part of it. And she will be joined by the art of 15 of her friends, including the work of Judith Steinberg, who actually became a guild member the same day as Liana. So in closing, we thank Liana so much. She is such a force of nature. She really created a future for Silvermine through the endowment. We simply continue to carry her torch that she lit. Silvermine will be forever grateful to her, and generations from now, young people not even born today, will be touched by her spirit, her generosity, and will be forever grateful for her love. So, Silvermine, Liana, we love you dearly. We deeply thank you, and you will always, always be in our hearts forever.
That was just beautiful, Rosemary. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
I forgot to mention, by the way, that not only my cousins from California are here, but our Italian cousins are here in heart. And they sent the beautiful white roses that are outside, and that's from all of the cousins. And this morning, the whole Italian clan had a mass in Mom's honor at the church in Trieste, Italy, where she was baptized. So, I'd now like to introduce our mezzo-soprano, Perry DeCristina, who's a recent graduate from Oberlin's Conservatory, and she is going to sing our mother's favorite song, Schubert's Ave Maria.
Oh
Drexler is a curator and very well-known documenter of American women artists.
And as a person who was constantly chided in my earlier music classes for having a monotone voice, this is quite an act to follow. But what I would like to say, for people who are in individual fields, Liana, of course, is known for her art. But sometimes artists will tend to be very protective of their own reputations and their own work, their own successes. It's a very competitive field, very difficult field to be in. But I remember from my years being with Nawa and speaking to Liana, she was always extremely generous towards the other artists in the group. Frequently saying, yes, you know, I might have been the president, I might have been important, but please, if I'm in a show and you don't think my work is good enough, that's fine, I shouldn't be in it. That's a very generous spirit, and I appreciated that all through the time I knew her. I'm here basically to talk about a very specific topic, which is the Nawa collection at the Rutgers University, the Silvermine Art Museum, which Liana Moonie was the major force behind. People constantly have already heard it. We've heard of it as a force of nature. And she really was. It's a very, again, very generous thing to do, to think of an organization which she helped move along and become more historically significant, to think of that in larger terms and to see what she could do for that organization to make it be better remembered and better established in terms of what its major mission was, which was the promotion and presentation of art by women from the United States. NAWA is the oldest continuing women's art organization in the United States, established in 1889, and it continues its mission to try to see if there ever will be true parity and equity for women within the art world, because as the collection was established and as NAWA grew, there were very, very difficult times early on, way back in the late 19th century, early 20th century, when women really couldn't even be members of the National Academy of Design, the most important groups, professional groups in the country. So the establishment of NAWA was very significant and way ahead of its time in a certain sense. Liana realized that and also looked forward as well as looking back. She realized that if a group didn't have the remarkable history that NAWA did have, it should have somewhere established a collection to present that to the general public, so people could really see, yes, there is a grouping beyond just individual exhibitions or individual artists, that we can see this history as a whole. So she was looking around, apparently, for various places to perhaps set up this type of a collection. And she came to Rutgers University and spoke to the people there because Rutgers University has had a very, very long tradition of academic excellence in women's studies and women's art. It had one of the very most important and earliest women's art programs and women's colleges, Douglas College, established in the early 20th century, which has a very, very good reputation for being a real nexus for the presentation of important women's academic research in all fields, and still today. Within Rutgers, it's not just one area like the Art Museum. There's established the Women's Center for Politics at Rutgers, Women's Center of Economics. Very large, wide latitude of concepts and subjects that are studied there. Besides, again, having a very active women's art program, the Women's Caucus of Art, the Women's Art Journal are located there. Many women actually established many of the major programs at Rutgers. The Brodsky Center for the Graphic Arts for print and printmaking is a major part of the Mason Gross School of the Arts. Again, creating more opportunities for women. So she came to Rutgers for a good reason. She said, here's a good opportunity. When she spoke to us about this idea, the NAWA collection itself is really quite small, not many pieces, but our idea was to see, well, you have a very long history you had a very large number of artists who currently are in the group or had been in the past. Perhaps we can build this into a significant collection. A number of works were given to us, again, a small number, although some were quite important, a small Mary Cassatt print, for example, and that became the core of what we hope to plan to be a larger, ongoing collection. We encourage people, the artists themselves, perhaps to donate. Most museums always enlarge their collections through donations. We encouraged relatives and estates of some of the artists to see if they might donate works to us, and many did. And over the years, it has continuously grown with lesser-known artists and better-known artists. Of course, now what ranges from people who have been already mentioned, people like Louise Nevelson and Dorothy Boehner, who are members of the group, very important 20th century artists. So as this collection grew, we found that we were able to fill in many historical areas within the collection with women artists. And by that presentation, it gave to the general public who came to the museum to see a general survey of American art, that the women artists were in there with the men artists at almost every single occurrence, all the major styles. It's just that, as we know within society, the women often tended to be held back, not shown, or frankly discriminated against. But now if you go to some collections, you will now see the women artists being more properly represented. One of the very last things to be purchased by the collection was a work by Marjorie Ryerson. Probably very few, if any, people know of this artist in the room, even if you weren't familiar with 20th century art. She was actually a member or a person who worked alongside of the Ashcan School, which many of you know, which showed sort of raw, everyday images of New York in a very, very sketchy style very often. And this was a major contribution to the collection, because here's a style, nobody thinks of women within that style. And here was a representation of it. It's currently in the museum at this point. And I was very glad during my many years at Rutgers, I'm retired now, that I was able to insert these important artists and representative artists within the collection. So without actually, in a sense, proselytizing for the women art, it was simply there. And it was a presentation. And you saw, yes, here they are. And that's one thing Liana wanted to do. Present the artists, present the work, so you can see it as a very natural extension of all the developments that happened in American art. Now, besides the art collection itself, which now, it's grown to about maybe almost 500 pieces. One reason is because we get pieces in, of course, that add to the collection, but also the artists who were already in the collection who were NAWA members. That's considered part of the collection as well. And if one goes around the museum and spots some of these things, it will be on the label saying it's part of the NAWA collection at Rutgers. So again, the organization is given its due. We also got from NAWA the archives, which Susan mentioned earlier, which is really a great deal of their history, exhibition catalogs, correspondence, things of that material, things of that nature, which are important for researchers to have in one place. And again, at Rutgers, it's a good place because there's so many other areas of women's studies that one might want to entertain. You can go there and really see a great amount of the actual documentation of the organization as it grew, as it changed, as it had many different programs. NAWA was very active in sending programs around internationally in many years. There are articles and reviews that show how important sculptors of NAWA were in the 1930s and 1940s. And I've, through this collection, been able to produce a few shows here and there, not only at Rutgers, we had regular shows there, but at other museums, such as the 120th anniversary show, which we had at the UBS Gallery in Manhattan, a historical show. So again, this shows the full range to the public of what NAWA is all about. And since NAWA was an important part of Liana's life, as well as her art, which I'm pleased to see is around the room with us here on that little monitor, which is a very nice idea to show a lot more of her work. Liana, in this specific way that I can speak to, shows her generosity of spirit, shows her interest in the future, shows her knowledge of what artists can be and will be if one simply has the mind to do so. And in the art field, we're trying to do exhibitions. That's something I appreciate. A person who has an idea, thinks it's important, and just goes at it. Presents the idea, presents herself, and says, this is something which, in a sense, the world will be better with if we can do it. And she did it. And given that, I, of course, myself have a great deal of appreciation and respect for what Liana did throughout her life. And at Rutgers, it's a legacy. She has left a legacy in this way, as she has here at Silvermine, generosity of spirit, which to me is just remarkably laudable. You don't find this very often within the museum world, that an individual artist would go to all this trouble to help other people, as well as things which mean a great deal to her. So I'm very glad that Greg asked me to come here today to give you this a little bit more information about the depth of what Liana did during a very productive life. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jeffrey. That was very informative. Leslie Ash is a very close, long-standing friend of my mother's, and she was there constantly the last 4 months when she was being shuttled from institution to institution, and she gave great comfort to my mother. And I want to thank her personally for helping me in setting up her apartment at Edge Hill, where we were trying to create a warm and welcoming environment for her once she was on hospice care. So Leslie, thanks.
Hi, yes, I'm Leslie. Greg asked me to speak and Barbara asked me to speak as a friend, and I'm particularly honored and humbled to be fulfilling that role, because I know that so many of you in this room knew her much longer than I did. I just ended up forming an incredibly tight bond with her, and I'm very appreciative of that time. But all of us in this room are part of a very lucky club. We're the friends of Liana, and people who are fortunate enough to know her. I love, it's been mentioned, but can't be said enough, I love being surrounded by her art, and I decided I couldn't wear black to honor a woman who loved color so much. So thus I decided to wear red. Not so prevalent in these, but prevalent in a lot of her work. My husband and I have one of her pieces in the very heart of our home, and right over the mantle, a fireplace mantle. And I smile each day when I wake up and I walk down and I see it. We had such fun going to pick it out. We went up the stairs. For those of you who've been to our studio, we went up the stairs and around the back, and we finally got to a space that was filled with spectacular art. But it was so cold, we had to keep our jackets on for the hour that we were there, struggling to decide which of the many pieces was right for us. She was delighted that we loved so many and couldn't make up our minds. So she suggested we bring several home to see which really worked for us. I had the privilege of serving as executive director here at Silvermine for 6 years, and my greatest joy was meeting so many extraordinary people and building some deep, lasting relationships. Liana held and holds a special place in my heart. She was a true friend and one of the dearest people I have ever known. Although we'd met many times before then, I traced the real start of our friendship to early 2012, when we were planning Silvermine's 90th birthday celebration. I received a call from her, and I will never forget her words. She said, "My husband is 94, and he doesn't drive anymore, and he doesn't want to go to the gala, but I'm only 90, and I want to go to the gala. I just don't drive at night anymore." So I assured her that we lived nearby, and my husband would be happy to pick her up. I hadn't yet asked him, but he was indeed happy to pick her up. And they had a great time together. But when she asked my husband to take her home, he assumed she was tired. She was, after all, 90. But no, she was still going strong, but was afraid her dear husband, Clyde, might start to worry about her. I cherished the time she would make surprise visits to my office on the second floor, climbing the stairs before I had a chance to stop her. I remember she was now in her 90s. I loved our chats and lunches and was grateful for her devotion to Silvermine and her high regard for what Jeff, Silvermine's gallery director, who was responsible for selecting and hanging all of these, and I were doing at Silvermine. She was very proud, as Rosemary said, she was very proud to have become a lifetime guild member, which does mean that she had been a member for 35 years, a significant amount of time. She felt strongly that Silvermine had provided her a lifeline, and she was determined to see it exist securely into the future. We talked about that at one of our lunches, and I told her the amount we needed to start an endowment, never expecting that we would receive a check for exactly that amount, but we did. I went to their apartment to thank Liana and Clyde in person and to make sure we understood their intentions and any restrictions. They were delighted to have been able to start something that mattered so deeply to Liana. When I left Silvermine last spring, I thankfully had more time to spend with her, and I cherished every moment. She understood that while I had left behind boards, budgets, and fundraising, it was now time for me to reconnect creatively. She practically demanded that I join the Greenwich chapter of the National League of Men and Women, one of her other beloved organizations. I picked her up and we went together to a couple of meetings before I'd even officially joined. We had fun attending together, and I'm most grateful to her for insisting that I join this fabulous group of women. In typical Liana style, she was very pleased that I was pleased, and broke into big smiles and knowing laughs whenever we talked about it. As you know, by the summer, her health had taken a bad turn, and things really deteriorated quickly from there. I lived nearby, and thankfully I now had the time to focus on what mattered most to me, and one of those things was Liana. So I made a point to visit with her as often as I could, at Nathaniel Witherall, the hospital, and finally Edge Hill. We talked about travel and families and art. She was not a Hillary fan, so we avoided politics, but all else was fair game. I showed her pictures of my trips, and she loved sharing stories of her own travels and her history living in many places. She recounted how much she wanted to come to this country from her native Italy, and that it was deeply ironic that when she had finally managed to get here and then married an American, his work took them abroad, and they were living in other countries, including Peru and Mexico. As she lost some of her energy, I loved showing her art to nursing staff and assistants, so they knew who she was. But she always had a smile and kisses and was as sweet as a person could be. In the end, I was able to crack the code and saw her alert if I came around 9 a.m. There was this window of opportunity, and I would grab it every day. And while I'm grateful that I got to see her smile the day before she passed, it is not that frail final image that will linger in my mind, but the warm, funny, and very determined friend I will always cherish. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. And now Perry is going to sing You Never Walk Alone, which was also another one of my mother's favorites. has been involved. I really never realized my mother was involved with Penn Women for such a long period of time. I've been receiving cards from the Penn Women, and they're very well represented here today. And it is just amazing what I didn't know about her and her impact. She was very devoted to this organization. And other than my cousins, I think that Deborah Weir has one of the largest collections of Liana Moonies in the country. Deb.
Great, thank you for that lovely introduction. And Barbara, thank you for including me in this celebration of life. I'm just so thrilled to be here. And yes, I am proud of my collection of Liana's artwork. It sort of hits you in the face when you walk in the house because it's everywhere on the first floor, and I just adore being surrounded by it, almost the way you are here today. In fact, this one I wanted to buy, but it's bigger than my house. So Liana counseled against it. And hearing these stories of Liana just warmed my heart. I, too, climbed the stairs with Liana. We went around the back of this rather odd-looking building with strange businesses on the first floor. One side said open, the same store had the closed sign, both displayed at the same time. Very strange environment, but very artistic, so I was thrilled to be there. Little kid from a small town in Ohio, this was big stuff. So she took me up the stairs, and this was just, 9 months ago, I think. And she still trotted up those stairs as if she was the healthiest person in the world. Wore me out looking at her collection of artwork. I was overwhelmed by the amount of artwork she had produced, and trying to make a selection was just way above my pay grade. So fortunately, Liana not only guided me through the collection and said, that one's too big, you can't have it. She allowed me to take a lot of them home, and she came with me, and we'd hold them up, and she'd say, no, this doesn't work, take it back. I don't know how many trips we made up those stairs, and she was so patient with me, and wonderful experience working with her. And I'm sure that ongoing, you'll have a wonderful experience working with Greg and Barbara, should you decide to buy any of the artwork.
And it's all for sale.
Well, it deserves to be shared with the world. It shouldn't sit in storage. So I'm glad that you're organizing that, because the world needs this beautiful, vibrant artwork. Just like the beautiful, vibrant lady who didn't say hello and shake your hand. She cupped your face and said, I love you. What a way to greet people. I met Liana at a board meeting that Ann Karen hosted in her home. Ann was president of the Greenwich branch of the National League of American Pen Women. And I was tasked with the job of updating our standing rules with Liana. I was in so far over my head I couldn't see. I was sitting at this table of high-profile artists, writers, and musicians who were well-known and well-paid and very adept at their craft. And here I was, the author of 3 little articles that had made their way into a professional journal, and no experience with standing rules, much less rewriting them. So Liana, of course, wrapped me in love, made it okay, did all the work while I sat by and learned. And that was a very important step towards my role as president of this wonderful organization. Now, the only reason I got to be president is because Liana rescued this branch. Many volunteer organizations go through a cycle of death and renewal. similar to the passing of the seasons. And Joyce French, who I see over here, pointed that out to another organization that was going through a difficult time. And Joyce recounted how even our organization contemplated dissolution at one time. Liana offered her home as the venue for the legal dissolution of the Greenwich branch of Penn Women, but it was a ruse. She had no intention of disbanding Penn Women. She wanted this meeting on her turf, where she was the boss, and they weren't getting out of their room until they fixed it and kept it going. And Anita was one of the volunteers who raised her hand and said, "I will serve," and helped to keep it going. And there are probably other people in this room who played a critical role at that juncture. But that was before I was a member, and thank God Liana kept the organization going so that those of us here, and there are a lot of us here, could benefit. Liana kept an active membership up until last spring. She continued to attend the art critiques and offer concrete criticism, constructive criticism, that would just fix whatever was going on with someone's work in process. But it wasn't just the artists that she supported. Some of the writers in this room benefited from her love and support. Certainly I was one. If you ever got to a point in your work where you thought, maybe this isn't working, maybe I'm not up to this, she knew you were up to it, and you had her support, and it got done. Even our photographers. There was a time, not too long ago, when photography was considered a little less good than painting because they used a camera instead of a paintbrush. But not in Liana's mind. She convinced our artists, one at a time, that they were just as good as any painter. And they believed her and rose to the occasion and created stellar photography, which continues to win prizes and become published in books. It's just a terrific experience, and her support of each individual woman is something that we will always remember from Liana. But Liana had a tremor in both hands, and someone once asked her, "How do you paint with that tremor?" And Liana's answer was, "It is not my hand that paints these pictures. It is the hand of God." And that was Liana.
Thank you, Barbara. That was very moving. What you forgot to mention was that when she invited all the members into her living room to talk about dissolution, she locked the front door. Pamela is president of the Massachusetts chapter of NAWA and was instrumental in working with my mother as liaison in the creation of the new chapter. And the work took a couple of years to get done, and because of the distance, it was almost entirely over the phone. And yet, they developed such a close bond. In my mother's words, you were her soulmate. So, Nella, thank you so much for coming all the way down.
I'm not surprised that everything that I wanted to say, it's already been said by everyone. And this was Liana. She just was an inspiration to us all. She was an inspiration to me. And the whole Massachusetts chapter, I would say, Liana said, and they would know. But I had to write down my thoughts because I know I would blank out. It's an emotional time for me. Liana was like my mother. So, here I go. Forte, coraggiosa, testarda, leale, etica, determinata, guerriera. Strong, courageous, stubborn, determined, fighter, loyal, and ethical, describes Liana. My soul sister, as she called me. Her life and my life had so many similarities. We both came from Italy and married an American husband. We were born there and educated there. We shared the stories of what life was in the old country and how the old country really shaped us as artists, wives, and mothers. We spoke about our favorite dishes, and we had the same favorite dishes, eggplant parmigiana. We spoke in Italian, of course. We shared so many laughs and tears. I will always remember Liana as a friend, sister, and mentor. She was so excited when the Massachusetts chapter was formed. She formed it. She called me and she convinced me to become the president. I wasn't so sure, but she said, you can do it. And we did it. She was organized and right to the point, and she was there guiding me in the whole chapter. When the end of the month would come, I knew that we better have the reports ready because she had to present that to New York. And she did that right to the end. She stressed the importance of being right on time and being reliable, because that's what she was. On our way to New York, a few times we stopped to see her. And just like an Italian mama, she would have the table filled up with Italian food. Salami, cheese, bread, Italian bread, and then she would have the French cake that she loved so much. And she would say, you bring this home, and you just have it on your trip back home. And that's what we did. As we know, 2016 was a rough time for her health. But she was still going to the studio, and she would whisper to me, don't tell anyone, but I'm driving. And I said, you shouldn't be driving, Liana. So one day she called me, and she said, oh, Nella, this is all in Italian, of course. Oh, Nella, just had a little accident. I said, oh my God, Liana, what happened? She says, I don't know, but I don't remember if it was her tooth or her nose that was hurt. And I said, are you okay? She says, I'm a little, so-so. She said, but what was really nice was this young policeman just offered to take me home. And she was so impressed by the fact that there's still people like that in this world. The stories are endless, and I will always remember you, Liana. You're an inspiration. I always told you what my wish was. I always said, I want to be half the woman you are at this age. And she said, no, Nella, you don't want that. I have cancer. And we will talk about that, and we will cry. I've not met too many women with your strength and your love for the arts and the mission that you so much care for. Thank you, Liana, and I know we will see each other again. I would like to end with a poem. The poem is titled Honest. Different, never ordinary, common or typical. They hear, set and feel things differently than most. Emotion is never far away. It can be. It fuels their work. Many of them are so brittle that they can break at any time.
but it's the price they pay for being allowed to fly so close to God's flame. Their sensitivity allows them to create what most cannot perceive on their own. They guide the insensitive to feel passion. They touch the heartless and help them see beauty. They teach the spirituality deaf to hear angels sing. The there, the sad and lonely, look to smile alive. Most of us are fortunate just to experience their work and share what's truly given by God. To know one is a rare honor. To call one a friend is a gift into itself. Rest in peace, Liana, and we love you.
I don't think I'm going to get through this next slide.
It must have been cold there in my shadow, to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine, that's your way. You always walked a step behind. So I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name for so long. A beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. I could fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed, but I've got it all here in my heart. I want you to know I know the truth. Of course I know. I would be nothing without you. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings. You are the wind beneath my wings. Fly, fly, fly away. Let me fly so high. Oh, fly so high against the sky, so high I almost touch the sky. Thank you, thank God for you, the wind beneath my wings.
Wow. If only I had pursued a singing career, I would have sounded like him, but you're even better. Thank you. Thank you. It's going to be a little emotional. You don't mind. All right, I think I got this. was God. The same was in the beginning with God. In him was light, and that light was the light of men. And that light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. The same came for a witness to bear witness of the light, that all through her world believed. That was the true light which lighteth every one that cometh into the world. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God said, let there be light. That light was our mother. She embodied love in everything she did and touched. She was a perfect image of the embodiment of love. We felt it in our lives, even when Greg had a ski accident and fractured his leg, when I had open heart surgery, when our father had a scare, when he heard he may have had lung cancer. And when we found what was lost, our mother was there as a star of light and hope. Thank you, Mother. She taught us, inspired us, and gave us the ability to love and to give unto others and how to relate to others so we may teach to those to appreciate each other in life and see to by her very loving parents. Her father even taught her to express her emotions in art. She loved those moments and giving herself her hands so dirty. I can just see this and her getting upset over being messed up. It must have been funny. This is emotional. He taught her also to love nature. That love comes through with Feelings of Nature collection. A former friend, an artist who encouraged her with her pursuing her God-given talent, taught her a lot more on how she can express the beauty of nature and truly inspired her. She knew him from the beginning. His name was Edgar Whitney. When she came to us on her project on Feelings of Nature, she wanted haikus. This came to be one of her favorite forms of literature, as well as a good book. We hemmed and we hawed. We thought, are you crazy? Greg was laughing. She wouldn't even hear of it. She's the type, if I want something, I want it. No one could say boo. This collection became a big hit for her. Among the haikus that we considered before we decided to write our own was fashion. And here are a few. Awake at night, the sound of the water jar cracking in the cold. Harvest moon walking around the pond all night long. How admirable to see lightning and not think life is fleeting. As you hear a sense of nature, as in the following prose from me. My writings have always moved her. She loved me and my writings, and she really did try to encourage me even to become a writer. And I said, nah. So this is my little tribute to our mother. She, our mother, is the perfect embodiment of love, as like the willow. She was the rock, the wind beneath our wings. She, like the willow tree, is bound to the earth by entwined roots. It remains despite tempests, earthquakes, the swirling waves of the seas. It's still as he shakes, waving about and reaches out for help. This is love, love eternal. Oh willow, how steadfast thou art, standing so tall. How great thou art, and firmly ground as you are like the rock you stand on. As if you were a god. A willow, great tree as you are, help us to help each other here on earth. Hear us, touch us, smell us, and taste us as the sweet of the salt of the earth. This is our mother. This is you, mother. Right before I end on a personal note, I not only want to thank you all for all of this, but also know our mother would have wanted this. Music and the arts combined. She was brought up to love the arts and culture of the world. This is it.
Well, yes, music and art, but when it comes to my mother, food and drink. Well, on behalf of Barbara, I want to thank each of our speakers. They were very moving, informative, wonderful, wonderful talks about my mother, our mother. And I want to thank Perry for just magnificent. Silvermine, Jeff Mueller, who curated these and hung them, Ann Connell, who was instrumental in getting everything put together. Thanks, Jeff. And Bruce, Jen, everyone, I'm just very, very grateful. This has come together better than I possibly could have imagined. And I want to thank each of you, my friends, for sharing this with us. And now, a little bubbly.
Thank you. All right. Hi, how are you? Good. That's not bad. It was getting tempting.